Surrounded by the sound of the river rushing around her multi-million-dollar mansion on her private forest island, she contemplates the journey that got her there. From the days spent living in her car, not knowing where her next meal might come from, to the shocking event she witnessed that would ultimately change her trajectory. Her journey of self-discovery and transformation through personal development, all the times that she fell on her face and tenaciously got back up, all the things that she achieved that she told were not possible. You can't do it without a college degree. She dropped out of high school. You can't do it with a huge email list. She didn't even have a website. You can't do it without a funnel. What's a funnel? Bankruptcy? Forget it. Yet she had become a multi-millionaire well before the 7 years it took for that bankruptcy to be dropped from her record. She thought of all of the celebrations she had with her amazing clients, teaching life-changing programs to thousands of participants, touching the lives of tens of thousands of women, the contributions that she was making behind the scenes, using her wealth to actually create more good in the world. And then there were the times that she was demonized by people, those people that turned against her, going from crowned to crucified, the days she spent crying, not wanting to do it anymore, only to bounce back even stronger, making an even bigger impact through the storms that she'd weathered. She created an $80 million plus business in less than 10 years, failing her way to the top, changing the lives of countless women through what she had learned through her unconventional trial and error process. Whether you love her, hate her, or this is the very first time you've ever heard of her, Melanie Ann Layer of Alpha Femme is a 3-5 profile in human design. In this episode, I'm covering the 3-5 Martyr Heretic Profile in human design. I'll go both over the third line and the fifth line individually, and then how they come together and combine into this unique and magnetic profile. We'll discuss common pitfalls for the 3-5 profile in business and how to overcome those so that they can really make the most out of this unique profile in their business and their life. Welcome to Heart-Centered Human Design, Emotional Intelligence, and Conscious Business, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs that want meaningful success and work-life balance so they can wake up every day feeling empowered, inspired, and supported by work and life. I'm your host, Vanessa Naja, self-proclaimed human design nerd and mentor and business coach. And I'm so excited to share this amazing program with you to break it down so that you too can make the most out of your business and life through this knowledge. If you're ready to create a business that you love, that's aligned with your purpose, fueled by your passion, and won't lead to burnout or excessive sacrifice, I'll let you know at the end of the episode how you can do just that. We are in part 5 of this 12-part series on the profiles in human design and in business. The profile is a huge part of how you fulfill your purpose. It's made up of 2 numbers, which the first number, and in today's episode, that number would be the 3, is the conscious part of the profile. So this is something that you will generally relate to. When you learn about it, it's something that you see in yourself and that you have a certain grasp over. The second number, so in today's episode, the 5, this is unconscious. This is more in the body. It is something that others definitely see in you. However, you might not recognize it in yourself right away, and you just have less conscious access and awareness to it. However, with time, personal development work, human design deconditioning, it is a part of your chart that will become very familiar to you and that you can really step into the highest expression of in order to fulfill your purpose and your potential. So the 3-5 profile is a personal profile. And what that means is that they really have to do the deep introspective personal work before they can go out and share what they have to share with others. The third line is known as the martyr in traditional human design. And in BG5, we refer to this as the pioneer because they are pioneers. They discover what works through what doesn't work. Third lines are often the first to do things. They discover how new things are done and they bring them out into the world through their trial and error process. Now, they do learn through experimentation, and they do have to fall on their face sometimes in order to learn what doesn't work. And by learning what doesn't work, they eventually get to what does actually work. The third line is also the most material line of the profiles. And a big part of their trajectory is really creating in the material realm the things that they're learning through their trial and error process. And in Melanie's story, obviously, she has created an impressive amount of wealth for herself and also working with her clients to help them do the same through this process of trial and error and doing things in very unconventional ways. What can happen with the third line? There's a lot of conditioning that we have around getting things right, not making too many mistakes. And the third line conditioning, there can be a lot of shame built into that. So especially if they grew up in a household where they were the only third line and everybody else learned in a different way, and they constantly got flack for making mistakes, this element of perfectionism can come in, and this fear of making mistakes, which has them stop experimenting. And it is absolutely essential for the third line to experiment in order to learn and grow. So if you're somebody that has a third line, and especially a 3-5 profile, allowing yourself that experimentation process, allowing yourself to make those mistakes and always asking, what did I learn? That is always the question for you. Not like, oh, that's bad or I did that wrong. It's always, what did I learn? And continuing to try, continuing to refine through that trial and error process is absolutely essential. Having a good sense of humor about this trial and error process is going to make the journey so much easier and so much more fun. And also stepping into that mindset of making mistakes is a good thing because it is a good thing for you. That is absolutely how you learn. You really have to get your hands dirty. You really have to get in there and fall on your face a couple of times before you emerge triumphantly. So making those mistakes, asking yourself what you've learned, having a sense of humor, laughing yourself about it is so essential. And I will say, so I do have a lot of third lines. I'm a 5-1, so I do also have a 5. And I am in a current major life cycle Chiron return where I am really getting to experience the 3-5 profile. And it's been so cool to recognize whenever I make those mistakes or, these little silly little things happen, and just recognizing right away, okay, that didn't work. What's next? And being able to laugh at myself has been so healing. So if you have a third line, learn to laugh at yourself, relish the mistakes, and celebrate every time you learn something new from a mistake that you've made. Third lines are incredibly resilient. They are the first to get up when they fall down. And they're also the first to be willing to point out when something isn't working. So if they see something that is not working, they will definitely take a stand for it, and they're willing to take the flack. Now, this is where the Martyr name came from, because they will go out there and point out publicly what doesn't work, and they are willing to take the heat for it. Very resilient and revolutionaries in their own right. There is also a fear of failure that can come in with third lines. And again, that goes in hand with that fear of making mistakes, potential childhood shame that needs to be conditioned around making mistakes. So doing the work around overcoming that fear and embracing failure, because there is no failure really. For a third line especially, there is no failure. There is only learning what doesn't work, which then gets you one step closer to what does actually work. Now, the fifth line, this one is known as the heretic. This is a visionary leader. It is someone that universalizes a message of what they have learned to the world at large. Universalizing really means sharing that message with a large number of people. So the fourth line, which tends to be more influential over its own network, is a little bit different here, because the fifth line is very influential over strangers of consequence and people it doesn't necessarily know. They're really meant to bring their message out into the world through universalization. And now the way it does it is it takes what it learns from the other part of its profile. So in this case, the 3-5, it's going to take what it has learned from its trial and error process and bring it out into the world. 5s are great teachers. They are sharers of their message, and they are also exceptional leaders. Now, the fifth line is often seen as the general or the saver or the fixer. there's this element in their aura, their electromagnetic frequency, that lets people know they have potentially the answer to their problems. Fifth lines provide practical, out-of-the-box, unconventional solutions, and this happens often in times of crisis. Now, they do live in this projection field. Other people do sense and pick up this element, and they often want things from fifth lines and have expectations of people with a fifth line in their profile. The person with the fifth line needs to be really careful about this. They will often know, okay, they want something from me. They will often see there's that expectation. And if they are able to fulfill that expectation, if they are able to provide the solution that the person is looking for, that is going to be really good for their reputation. People like to tell other people about fifth lines that have solved problems for them. However, if they do not provide the solution, if they get seduced by this projection and they take it as a form of flattery, like, oh, this person thinks I can solve this problem, like, let me solve it for them, and then they fall on their face, do not provide the solution, that is going to be bad for their reputation, because people also like to tell other people when the fifth line has really failed them. And this is that element of being crowned or crucified or being put up on a pedestal and then being knocked right off. Now, projections can also come up in other ways. People will often see in fifth line profiles what they actually need to do to heal in themselves, and they will have expectations of that fifth line. And so one example of this, Melanie, whose story I told at the beginning of the episode, people had expectations of her that she was going to stay the same. She was very gifted at coaching people and helping people through the things she had learned through her trial and error process. And as she blew up and more people learned about her, those people that wanted her to stay small and that were comfortable with her, just being a small time coach, really turned on her. And she did get a lot of pushback from those people. So that fifth line, they can be quite polarizing. And there are a lot of famous people in the world with fifth lines. And I'll give some examples. Madonna, Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, Sinead O'Connor. And these are not necessarily 3-5 profiles, but they have fifth lines in their profiles. And there are people that are very polarizing, where people either love them or hate them. And so if you have a fifth line in your profile, that is something that can happen. You might not live up to people's expectations, or you will be unwilling to stay in, whatever box other people have set for you in their expectations. And that is okay. So learning to not take the projections personally is really important for a fifth line. And being a fifth line myself, I know it is so much easier said than done. And working through the deconditioning process, through your human design, following a strategy and authority, this is a huge part of that process. Now, with that fifth line, going back to following strategy and authority, really only providing the solutions that are correct for you is essential and is really going to help with that reputation aspect of being a fifth line, not being seduced by the projections people put on you that are not actually correct for you. Only answering the right projections is really essential. Now, for the fifth lines, they can become afraid of the projection field. They have a lot of experience with this. And with the 3-5 profile, this is unconscious. So bringing awareness to that, like really, if you have a 3-5, thinking back on all the times that you have been put on a pedestal, people have provided these expectations for you that you then didn't meet, and then you were knocked off your pedestal, like go back and think and journal about those just to really bring some of that more into your awareness. There is that fear, and with the 3-5, this can be very subconscious of stepping out into the projection field, so they hide and they play small. Fifth lines have very big auras and they are meant to do big things in the world. So if you are hiding and playing small and not universalizing whatever it is that you are here to universalize, you will not be able to be on purpose or fulfill your potential. So doing the work around those fears and courage and deconditioning is absolutely essential to really step into who you were born to be. When we bring the 3-5 profile together, people with a 3-5 profile are here to universalize what works and what doesn't work, what they have learned through their trial and error process. They have to express both sides of their profile in order to really fulfill their purpose. So that means that experimentation, that trial and error process, learning what does and doesn't work, and then sharing what does work with the world. So fifth line, universalizing, this is on a massive scale. What can happen is that people fall into one or the other side of their profile. So either they do a lot of experimenting and they might get comfortable with that learning through trial and error, but they don't go out and universalize, or they try to universalize or teach things that they haven't actually embodied through their experimentation process. And neither of those are going to work. You have to really embody as a 3-5 what works and what doesn't work through your own process. You have to have actually done it yourself in order for it to be really effective and something that you can really help other people solve problems with. Those practical yet out-of-the-box solutions that you provide are solutions that you have discovered yourself through your trial and error process. So you really want to find a place where you are balancing both sides of this profile. You're doing the experimenting and you're universalizing what you have learned. Not experimenting at all, which can also be a problem, and then trying to universalize something that you have not experimented with and haven't embodied with is not going to work. And I'm not going to lie, the 3-5 can be a little bit of a challenging profile. They are really here to bring change, to be the first. They are pioneers. They are messengers. They are leaders. And they provide solutions that have never been seen before. And sometimes that can be difficult because when brand new things are brought out into the world, people can often be resistant for a little while until they adopt that solution. And then you are absolutely celebrated. Please keep experimenting as a 3-5. I'd love to hear what you have learned, because when you do your experimenting and you learn through your trial and error and you share that with the world, we get to learn without having to make all those mistakes. You really speed up the process for the people that you serve by saving them their trial and error process if they don't need to have that process. It's important for you to remember authentic self-expression, really stepping into who you are, doing your deconditioning work, deconditioning through human design, and expressing and communicating as authentically as possible. This will help reduce the negative projections or the projections that are not correct for you. If you really show up in the world as who you truly are, and you're not pretending to be somebody else, you're not pretending to have solutions that you don't have, you're not pretending to be perfect, you're not hiding the fact that you fall on your face a lot. This is actually something for you to share because it is a part of who you are and how you learn and how we learn. So authentic self-expression, experimentation, following strategy and authority to know what is correct to experiment with and what is correct to universalize, which projections are correct for you, which problems you can actually solve. Such an important part of living in alignment as a 3-5 profile. Now, the profile is a super important part of your chart, but it is only one part of your chart. The beauty happens when everything gets tied together. I would love to help you do that. We can do that through a human design reading where I spend time with you going over your chart and really bringing in all the unique aspects into a holistic whole. So synthesizing the chart is such an important element to really get a full picture of your design. And if you're ready to create a business that you love, that's aligned with your purpose, fueled by your passion, is profitable and successful, won't lead to burnout or a constant and excessive sacrifice, join me in Passion, Purpose, Profit, your path to conscious entrepreneurship through human design and emotional intelligence. You can check it out at vanessanaja.com/PPP. That's 3 P's for passion, purpose, and profit. I'll also link it in the show notes. And feel free to send me a message if you have any questions about that. You can DM me on Instagram at @hdvanessanaja. And also head over to Instagram and check out all of the free content I have available there for you on all aspects of human design, emotional intelligence, and conscious business. If you are a 3-5 profile, I would love to hear your experience. Drop a comment wherever you are listening or watching and let me know. I so appreciate it. And if you are listening or watching somewhere where you can't comment, head over to Instagram at @hdvanessanaja and let me know there. Thank you so much for listening.